My name is Emily Graves. I'm 28 years old. And this is how I took revenge on the people who turned my silence into their weapon. It started on a Tuesday. That's how I remember it. Not because anything unusual happened at first, but because of how the air felt. Cold, sharp, cloudy enough to feel like the sky was bracing for impact. The kind of day where everything looks normal, but nothing feels right. I was in the conference room on the 15th floor, fluorescent lights buzzing, windows fogged from the inside. I was holding a lukewarm coffee that I hadn't touched, watching the steam vanish as quickly as my breath. Then the door opened and HR walked in with that expression, the one they use to pretend they're being sensitive, when really they're just rehearsing legal lines in their head. I should have known then. They sat across from me and said I was being investigated for a complaint I had filed weeks earlier. Sexual misconduct. Not me as the perpetrator, but as the victim. Except here's the twist. They weren't protecting me. They were accusing me of making it up. I remember the words, due to inconsistencies in your statement and lack of corroboration. I remember the air being sucked out of the room. I remember trying to speak, but my throat didn't cooperate. My body went cold, numb, like it wasn't mine anymore, like it already knew how many times it had been betrayed. And this was just another tally. Then came the emails, the cold stares, the awkward silences in meetings, the way the men I had worked with for years, people who had once cheered me on, clapped when I got promoted, leaned over my desk for advice, started looking at me like I was a virus. Suddenly, I wasn't Emily, the lead product strategist. I was a liability, a drama, a lie. The worst part, I didn't fight back. Because when you're a woman in tech, especially one who's worked twice as hard to get half as far, you learn something early. Silence is safer than truth. You smile when they interrupt you. You laugh when they accidentally brush against your waist in the elevator. You make yourself small so they can stay comfortable. And when something happens, something real, you measure your response not by how deeply it hurt, but by how likely it is to make them uncomfortable. So I stayed silent until that Tuesday, until I saw how calm they were, how confident, assuming I'd go quietly like all the others. And in that moment, something inside me snapped, not loudly, not with rage. It was quieter than that, a shift, a click, like the sound of a match being struck in the dark. That was the day everything began to burn. I grew up in Ohio. Small town, suburbs, 3-bedroom house with a rusted swing set out back and a dog that barked at shadows. I was the middle child, stuck between my older brother, who made everything look easy, and my little sister, who made everything look magical. I was the quiet one, the straight-A student, the kid who didn't ask for much and never caused trouble. I wasn't the one people noticed, not at school, not at home. I existed in the in-between. Too good to be a problem, too quiet to be remembered, until I discovered coding. I was 14. I still remember the moment. A rainy afternoon, my brother's old laptop, and a YouTube tutorial on HTML that was supposed to kill boredom. But instead, something lit up inside me. Logic made sense. Code was clean, predictable, fair. You give it an input, it gives you an output. No guessing, no pretending, no trying to be louder than everyone else. I could build things, games, websites, tools. I could make the world listen by creating something it couldn't ignore. For the first time, I had a voice. By the time I was 17, I had my own GitHub. By 19, I had won 2 national programming competitions, and by 25, I was hired in Seattle, a lead developer at a rising AI startup called Velenex. It felt like a dream. We were building something massive, neural learning models that could evolve in real time, code that mimicked intuition. It was bold, it was experimental, and it was going to change everything. Or so we believed. There were only 3 women on a team of 40, but I was too focused to care. I stayed late, took the 1 a.m. bus home, drank too much Red Bull, slept too little. I was building something that mattered. That's what I told myself. That's how I justified the way I disappeared from birthdays, skipped phone calls, let relationships fall apart like they didn't matter. Because Velenex was it. This was where people like me came to be seen. And Tyler, our CEO, saw me. He was 32, tech's golden boy, sharp suits, messy hair, Ivy League charm with startup grit. He had the kind of presence that made rooms go quiet. He called me the quiet storm in meetings, said I was the most reliable mind in the room. When I solved a problem no one else could, he clapped the loudest, and I believed him. Then there was Lena, the only other female engineer on my team. She was everything I wasn't. Bold, blunt, unfiltered. She had this fire in her that made people listen even when they didn't want to. She could call out a sexist joke and still get a promotion the next week. She scared people in the best way. I admired her. I envied her. And somewhere deep down, I depended on her too, because she said the things I wouldn't dare to say. We'd sit on the rooftop after late shifts, passing fries and venting about the nonsense we swallowed every day, the way our code was double-checked, the way our ideas were echoed by louder male voices and suddenly taken seriously. We laughed about it. That's how we survived. And when we won that industry award for innovation, Tyler made a speech that called us a family. I actually believed him. I thought we were building something revolutionary together. I thought loyalty meant something. I thought hard work spoke louder than politics. But I didn't know I was the expendable one. I didn't see the red flags, the subtle shifts, the glances Lena started getting from leadership when she pushed too hard. The way Tyler's praise turned colder, more distant, once I stopped laughing at his jokes. The way my ideas started getting reassigned or rephrased by people with louder voices and stronger titles. I thought it was me. Maybe I wasn't working hard enough. Maybe I was being paranoid. That's what they make you think, that you're lucky just to be in the room, so don't make waves. And then came the incident. I won't say his name here, not yet. But he was a team lead, older, married, respected. The kind of guy who could joke about your outfit and still get asked to mentor new hires. He cornered me after a product launch party. Hands where they didn't belong. Words I can't forget. A violation wrapped in charm and alcohol, and a smile that said, "No one will believe you." And for a while, I didn't tell anyone. Not even Lena, because I didn't want to ruin the thing I had worked so hard to build, because I thought I could just move past it, ignore it, outwork it. But the truth doesn't go away, and silence, it doesn't protect you. It just delays the betrayal. Because when I finally did speak up, they made me the problem. And that's when I stopped believing we were a family. That's when I stopped thinking I could survive this quietly. And that's when I started planning what came next. It started small. That's how it always starts, right? With moments you tell yourself not to overthink. A comment here, a glance there. Things you brush off so you don't sound dramatic. Tyler would linger after meetings, Just him and me in the glass conference room, pretending to talk product strategy while his eyes wandered. He'd compliment my tenacity, my fire, but it never felt like he was talking about my work. I remember one time, I had just pushed a major patch under the deadline, barely slept, walked into the office with greasy hair and half a bagel. Tyler clapped a little too hard in front of the team, then leaned in and said, "There's something sexy about a woman who never quits." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. Then came the pitch party. We were at a rooftop bar in Capitol Hill, music loud, neon lights making everyone look cooler than they really were. We'd just closed a massive deal, and drinks were flowing like celebration was a currency we could all afford. I was standing near the railing, talking to a venture partner about machine learning ethics. Tyler came up behind me, hand on my lower back, and leaned in too close. He whispered something I won't repeat, but I remember how it made my skin crawl. I froze, didn't move, didn't speak, just smiled like I didn't hear it, like I hadn't just been reduced to something he thought he owned. Lena saw it happen. She pulled me aside later and looked me dead in the eye. "Say something now," she said, "because if you don't, it'll get worse." I wanted to believe she was wrong, that it was just a moment, a line crossed accidentally, that he'd sober up and pretend it never happened. But deep down, I already knew better. Still, I said nothing. I was scared of being labeled difficult, of losing my job, of being that woman who makes a scene. I had worked too hard to get here. I told myself I could handle it, that staying quiet was a form of strength. Lena didn't agree. A few days later, she filed a complaint. She didn't tell me at first, but I could tell. The air changed. Her desk was suddenly under review. Her projects got reassigned. People started whispering when she walked by. And then, just like that, she was gone. No goodbye email, no party, just a meeting with HR on Monday and an empty desk by Tuesday. HR called it performance issues, claimed she wasn't a team player, said she struggled with collaboration. But I knew better. We all did. And still, I said nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because I was afraid I would be next. Then came the meeting. I got the calendar invite at 8:03 a.m. Subject line, HR check-in. My stomach dropped. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe an audit. Maybe they wanted to talk about the new equity policy. But when I walked into the room, two HR reps were already there. One was taking notes. The other had that tight, performative smile. The one they wear when they're about to say something rehearsed. They asked me to sit. Then they told me that a complaint had been filed against me. Hostile conduct, harassment, creating an unsafe environment for male colleagues. I thought I misheard. My ears rang so loud I could barely hear the details. But the words that did make it through shattered something in me. They said I'd made someone uncomfortable with aggressive behavior, that my tone in meetings had been undermining, that I had targeted a colleague with sexually inappropriate tension. It was so twisted I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to cry, to explain, but all I could do was sit there, stunned, while they handed me a paper outlining my next steps. It was a joke, a cruel, calculated joke. They had flipped the script, turned me into the predator, so they could protect the real ones. And I knew exactly who had done it. In my silence, they had found their weapon. They took my fear, my restraint, my professionalism, and used it to bury me. That was the moment something cracked open inside me. Not a breakdown, not yet, but a decision. They wanted silence. They were about to learn what happened when I finally stopped being quiet. They called it a precautionary suspension, said it was standard protocol while they investigated the claims. But I knew what it was. I was being erased. Within hours, they locked me out of my work email. My Slack account went dark. The folders I'd created, the design systems I'd architected, the documentation I'd spent years perfecting, gone, like I had never existed. My name disappeared from the credits on the Velonex homepage. The flagship product, my product, now listed team collaboration under authorship. No names, no fingerprints, just collective effort. Colleagues who used to laugh with me during late night debugging sprints now avoided eye contact in the hallway. Some unfollowed me on LinkedIn. Others sent short, awkward texts. Hope you're okay. But no one asked for the truth. No one wanted to know. I called Tyler, straight to voicemail. I left one message, just one. My voice cracked halfway through it, but I held steady. I don't know what this is, Tyler, but I'm not the villain here. He never called back. I emailed HR, no reply. I sent a legal request for documentation of the complaint. Still nothing. That week, I went numb, not angry, not panicked, just disconnected. I'd wake up, shower, and sit at my desk like I was logging in for work, even though I had nowhere to log into. I'd stare at blank documents, rereading old code in offline editors, wondering how many more women like me had been pushed into silence with the same cold precision. That's when the phone rang. It was Jason, Lena's brother. I hadn't spoken to him since the holiday party 2 years ago. He sounded nervous, his voice low, like he didn't want to be overheard. "Emily," he said, "Lena tried to call you before she left." "Left?" I asked. "Left where?" "The country," he said. "She's in Barcelona with friends. She needed to get away. Said she didn't feel safe here anymore." My heart clenched. Jason continued. "She told me to warn you. She said they were erasing her, scrubbing her name from everything. She said you'd be next." I didn't speak for a long time because I already knew she was right. The erasure had already started, but hearing someone say it out loud made it real in a way that shattered me. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my old laptop, the one they hadn't confiscated, and I went digging. Not for justice, not yet, just for truth. I still had access to some of the older drives from a time when I was the admin for our legacy system. Velonex had migrated most of its data to a new cloud server, but remnants remained. Backups, logs, forgotten folders no one had bothered to clean up. I found the drive. It was buried deep in the system under a random string of characters. Most people would have missed it. Inside, I found surveillance backups, raw, uncompressed files from the office's rooftop security cam, footage from the night of the pitch party. I opened it, and I watched. There I was, standing near the railing. There was Tyler, approaching me, laughing, charming, then leaning in, his hand low on my back, and then my face, frozen, uncomfortable, eyes darting, lips pressed tight. You could see it. You could feel it. It was undeniable. And yet, this file wasn't on the main server. It had been erased from the active logs. They had tried to delete the truth, but I had it now. And that wasn't all. I kept digging. Slack had its own backend. Archived workspace data stored redundantly for compliance. They thought disabling my account was enough to lock me out. But they forgot I helped build the integrations. I knew the override keys, knew how to access logs they didn't even remember existed. That's where I found the messages. A private channel, 6 members, executive level access only. Tyler, the COO, HR head, legal counsel, and two VPs. The messages were short but damning. Tyler, if this becomes a press issue, we say we took immediate action. CUU, can we spin her as unstable? Make it about burnout. HR, already writing the exit narrative. She'll settle. They always do. Tyler, control the story. Make sure Lena disappears too. I stared at the screen, hands trembling. This wasn't damage control. This was a strategy, a premeditated erasure of two women who had done nothing wrong, except exist in spaces they were never meant to survive in. It made my skin crawl, not just because of what they said, but because of how casually they said it, like destroying lives was just part of the job. And that's when the numbness cracked. I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. But fury alone wouldn't be enough. Because if I spoke up now, if I went to HR or even to the press, they'd bury me, frame me, drown me in lawsuits and NDAs and back-channel whispers. They were powerful, connected, untouchable. So I made a decision. I wouldn't beg for justice, I wouldn't ask for permission, and I wouldn't try to survive this quietly. I was done surviving. Now, I was planning, because I didn't want a seat at their table anymore. I wanted to flip the whole damn thing. I started printing everything, archiving it, creating backups on drives, then backing those up with encryption. I contacted a friend at a national tech publication, someone I trusted, and asked for a meeting. No details yet, just a time and place. I bought a burner phone, set up new cloud storage under an alias, and then I wrote it all down. The timeline, the proof, the betrayal, all of it, not just to protect myself, but to build the fuse. Because if they wanted war, I was done waiting for their terms. I wasn't going to fight them by their rules anymore. I was going to burn them down, and I was going to make sure the whole world watched them fall. They thought I was gone, that I'd fade out like Lena, that I'd take the hit, maybe cry into a lawyer's voicemail, then disappear quietly into some other job, some other city, some other life. But they forgot who they were dealing with. I didn't just know how to build systems, I knew how to break them. So I created a new identity. No name, no gender, no trace, just a handle, Jane X, anonymous, encrypted, stateless, the voice of every woman they tried to silence. I built a digital fortress, a sandboxed environment they couldn't trace, a VPN chain through 4 countries, a storage node hosted in Iceland. I triple verified every upload, scrubbed every piece of metadata, automated time-staggered releases to post while I slept. And then I started to drop the truth. The first post went live at 7:03 a.m. on a Monday, prime scroll hour for the tech elite. It was just a simple tweet, pinned to a newly created Jane X account. They erased me. Here's what they didn't erase. Attached was a PDF, 35 pages of internal Slack messages, screenshots, and board meeting minutes. Conversations between execs discussing how to control the story, how to handle optics, how to discredit me and Lena. The thread exploded. Within minutes, tech Twitter was in chaos. By lunchtime, Reddit had picked it up. That night, I leaked the salary spreadsheets. Velenex had always prided itself on being a meritocracy. But I published the raw data, job titles, performance scores, and salaries. It showed men with lower ratings making 15 to 20% more than women in the same roles. In some cases, double. The data spoke louder than any accusation ever could. People started paying attention. I timed every release like a drumbeat. Not all at once, but in waves. Just enough to stay trending. Just enough to force them to react. Each thread was captioned with only one phrase. You thought we were quiet because we were weak. You were wrong. Then came the security footage. Clipped, zoomed, enhanced. I made sure every viewer could see the moment Tyler's hand grazed the small of my back, the discomfort on my face, the way I stood frozen like my body had stopped being mine. It wasn't graphic, but it was undeniable. They had tried to erase that night, but now the whole world was watching it. News outlets started sniffing. Tech blogs reached out. Anonymous sources began confirming parts of the leaks. I received encrypted messages from other women, former employees, interns, contractors, all with similar stories, all too afraid to go public until now. But the final blow, the one I'd saved for last, was the video Lena had taken the night before she filed her complaint. She'd hidden her phone under a folder during a meeting with the executive team, and it caught everything. Tyler, laughing as he leaned back in his chair. "I'm not worried about Emily," he said. "She won't say a word. She never does." And then, actual laughter. Not just his, the whole room. That clip broke the internet. It went viral overnight, shared across every platform. Millions of views in hours, hashtags trending, comment sections flooded with outrage. That single sentence became a war cry. She never does. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. Every major tech journalist had sent me a message. Some offered book deals. Others just begged for confirmation that I was real. I stayed quiet. Jane X wasn't about me. It was about the truth. By 5 p.m., Velonex's stock had dropped 36%. Investors were panicking. The board issued a public statement promising a thorough investigation. The same line they'd used when they suspended me. Only now, no one was buying it. Tyler resigned 2 days later. No press conference, no apology, just a cold, clinical memo signed by the board, effective immediately. The HR director followed within the week. Then the VP of operations. One by one, they dropped like dominoes. They tried to control the story. Instead, they became it. And the best part? I never asked for a cent. No settlement, no lawsuit, no gag order. Because revenge, for me, was never about money. It was about noise, about ripping open the silence they built their empire on, and making sure the whole damn world heard the truth scream through the cracks. They thought silence was safety. They never imagined it could become a weapon. And now, it was. I never revealed I was Jane X. No press tour, no anonymous interviews, no tell-all op-ed. I just disappeared, quietly, and watched from afar as the story detonated across the industry like a slow, rolling thunder. More women came forward, not just from Velonex, but from everywhere. Startups, tech giants, venture firms, interns, engineers, executives, women who had been told to lighten up, to be grateful, to stay quiet. They were done swallowing it, all of it. Velonex tried to respond. They rebranded, changed their name, their colors, their core values. They restructured leadership, hired a DEI consultant, and posted a photo of their new board, more diverse, more polished, more aware. They begged for trust, but it was too late. Their legacy wasn't innovation anymore. It was what they tried to bury. Lena emailed me from Berlin. Subject line, "We finally mattered." That was all it said, but I read it over and over again like a message carved in stone. We finally mattered. It wasn't justice, not exactly, not in the legal sense, no court ruling, no official apology, but something deeper happened. Something you can't put on a company statement or a quarterly report. We were seen, and that was enough to breathe again. After the fallout, I got offers from companies I used to dream of working for, from universities, magazines, panels. They wanted me to speak, to write, to become the face of something bigger. But I said no because I was tired of performing strength. I was tired of having to prove I belonged in a room I helped build. So I took time off, cashed out what little equity I still had, deleted my old social accounts, packed what mattered into a rental van, and drove north until the roads grew quiet. I found a cabin outside Portland, pine trees taller than cell towers, a lake that held its breath at dawn. No Wi Fi, no noise, just space. At first, I didn't know what to do with silence. It felt strange, empty, like a void. But slowly, I began to fill it with something else. I started writing, not code, not functions or frameworks or lines of logic to solve someone else's problem. I wrote words, journals, essays, fragments of stories that had lived inside me for too long, the kind that women like me were never supposed to tell, the kind that made people uncomfortable, the kind that felt real. And somewhere in that mess of ink and breath and memory, I found myself, not the developer, not the team player, not the scapegoat, just Emily. It wasn't healing because justice had been served. It wasn't closure in the way the world defines it. No court ruling, no revenge scene with applause. I was healing because I took it back. My story, my voice, my silence had been a weapon, one they used against me. But now, it was mine again, a tool, a choice, not a cage. Sometimes people ask what revenge feels like. Here's the truth. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like reclaiming oxygen after years of drowning quietly. It feels like saying no more and meaning it. It feels like planting both feet in the ground and finally realizing you don't need to be loud to be heard. You just have to stop whispering to survive. Sometimes people ask me why I never came forward publicly, why I stayed in the shadows, why I let the name Jane X carry the fire while I disappeared behind it, why I let my silence remain, even after everything. And I get it. To some people, silence looks like surrender, like fear, like weakness. But what they don't understand is that my silence was never weakness. It was strategy. Because silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's pressure. It's potential. It's the pause before the storm. They thought I was gone. They thought they had buried me, erased me, forgotten me, but they didn't realize I was studying every move, holding every receipt, watching the cracks form in their perfect little empire. And when I finally set that silence on fire, it burned louder than any scream ever could. It wasn't about revenge for one person. It was about reckoning for all of us who were told to sit still, stay pretty, stay quiet. So if you're listening to this, if you're her, the one they dismissed, the one they laughed off, the one still sitting in a conference room with your hands clenched under the table, wondering if your story will ever matter, I want you to hear me now. Don't let them define your silence. Don't let them take it and twist it and weaponize it against you. Because when the time comes and you decide to speak, make sure it's the last thing they hear.